Hello again, everybody. Hello, Jess. It's been such a long
Hello
time since
again.
I saw you.
It's a
Good
great
to see
morning.
you back, everybody. Nice to see our usual suspects, if you will, in the chat room again. Nice to have you gals back, and guys, I'm sure as well, on Solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa. And it's about to change to Solutions with Shanti. So that's going to change in the next few days again. So just be prepared for change. Okay. And what we're going to be doing is a little revision today. And as I said on Aquarius Rising Africa, we're doing a little revision, with some of our past stuff we've done. Just kind of looking at symbolism and how, and the first one, and I want to just, there's quite, where is that one now? There's quite a bit here that I've downloaded just to see. Okay, the most interesting one actually. We now obviously, and why I'm doing this just to go over this again. A lot of the stuff we've done in the past with Jessie, in fact, like 2-3 years ago already. But what I've been noticing the last few weeks, especially, is that I think a lot of people are just taking notice and sort of realizing now what these things mean. I'm seeing a lot of the stuff on Twitter for the first time. I'm going, well, we did that a long time ago.
Yeah.
So all of that. But anyway, I think also maybe what I'd like to do, a bee just flew in here and reminded me that we need to open up in prayer. So can you do that?
Yes. Father God, we thank you for the bees. We thank you just for the way that you made everything, that you've made things to sustain us. We ask that you would sustain us today, that you would sustain our airways, our tech equipment, that you would sustain and provide all the provisions for everybody listening and watching. We ask that your blessings would be poured out upon us this morning. In your powerful name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. And thank you for the bee. Apparently we
Yes,
need
I
it.
like bees.
Yeah, they're just lovely. They're just lovely. Anyway, so as I was saying, we're just going to do a little bit of a revision on stuff. Let's just brush up on our symbolism because one thing we know about our dark brothers and sisters, the ones that are working for the flip side of the belly, they have to tell us in plain sight all the time what they are doing. That's part of their cult, if you will. So it's up to us to be able to read the language, right? Or understand the language they speak. And more than anything, knowledge is power. So when we have the knowledge about what's going on and not just, oh, well, they're speaking in sign language. They are speaking in sign language all the time, but it's up to us to understand what they're saying. And also, kind of like who's involved, I'm not really into gossiping and scandaling. I must say, really, that doesn't gel well with me. But it's good to know what's going on. And so let's see. One of the first ones I'd like to pop up, Jess, is one that I caught my attention on Twitter this week. And Madame Beyonce, looking oh so glorious on her pink cube. Maybe you can again just give us the explanation of what a cube means. And in the back there, you can see there's a pink flamingo standing. Okay, now for me, it was like, what the heck does a pink flamingo mean? And I had some suspicions, which I think might be right. But Jessie, can you just carry on from there?
Yeah, so, well, the first thing we see is, the Illuminati hand signal that she's doing. And we've done episodes where we've talked about, how they'll, on magazine covers, they'll pass where, which quadrants are hosting the rituals and where those rituals are going to be taking place. Now, we know that Beyonce is one of the, considered one of the quadrant leaders as a grand high priestess for the East. But it looks like, she's indicating that rituals are going to be in that Eastern quadrant, as well as, there's some other fine details that she just throws in there. We know, in Freemasonry that they often use the black and white checkered floors to signify certain things. Usually they're placed on ritual ground. They also can be placed over areas where you have spiritual gates. So you'll see them, commonly in the Capitol buildings. And there's a difference in how you interpret. Like, when you see more of its equal distribution of black and white, like we'll just say the majority of her pants there, that means that the sacred ground is going to be accessed below. If you see where, it's more white prominent, that means that the axis is going to be above. So what's interesting is that, she's standing above the box, but everything about her clothing is indicating that everything's going to be below. Um, so they also will have, it's common in Masonic lodges that they'll have, a space below that ritual ground that they will call a reflection room. So we know, the system will often use pink as an abduction code. So are they, is there an indication, is there much more to this than just, hey, rituals are, at this time, at this place, in this quadrant? I think there is. There's quite a bit of information. And in fact, what's interesting is even the whole background, you have the very reminiscent of German style houses. Um, that you do find a lot of those in some of those upper eastern quadrants. But then she's got the soccer ball, which could be there just because of the checkers, but it also could be, maybe she's telling them that something very specific about where they're supposed to connect or meet up or where rituals are going to be occurring. Now, the flamingo's kind of the interesting part because we know that that symbology is often used by individuals who are swingers. They would put the flamingos in their yard to indicate that they were a household, that, where couples could come and then they will sexually exchange partners. So we have to ask, like, what in the world is Beyonce all getting herself into, you know?
When you say the reflection room, what exactly do you mean when you talk about a reflection room?
Well, usually before they take their vows or oaths, um, they have to figure out before they can get to those next levels in their Masonic degrees, um, how to access that reflection room. And that means that they're going to have to figure out, how to get into it. And
Mm.
once they figure out how to get into that room, which has to happen spiritually, um, then they're going to find a table with, things that they can reflect on. Those tables are often, uh, will have a skull, a quill, um, different items. In fact, it could have, most of the time, they'll have a book there. That book will have different things for them to reflect on. Those are the reflection rooms usually are symbolized in masonry by the rooster as well,
Wow.
but they always have a sacred floor above them usually.
Wow. So, I mean, I would then just sum that up as okay, well, there's going to be some kind of a swinging party going on and probably kids involved, right? I would say that that would be, I would, the pink I would put down to girls. Would the pink have any relevance to girls? To me, it would
Well,
seem
the other
like,
concerning part, we know the cube is very reminiscent to Mecca,
right.
representing, Luciferianism in Mecca. So is it, reminiscent of what type of girls they're going to have present there?
Hmm.
And
Wow.
then you add the swinger thing. Are these, is it for those who, or older men married to very young ethnic women from the Muslim culture. Is that really what's going on?
Wow. So it's kind of swapping young wives. And I mean, obviously, the soccer ball to me would say it's something to do with the soccer field, or maybe after a soccer game, she's pointing in a very specific direction.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going in that direction. And her legs crossed. Do you think that has anything to do with anything there? With standing almost like in that X position again, right?
You see the flamingo kind of in the same stance.
Yeah.
I think it just has
Wow.
to do with the swinging. Yep.
Brenda in the chat. Beyonce looks very cocky. She does look very cocky there. She definitely, and especially that look on her face. It's like she's, I don't know
Yeah.
if you can see it. I'm actually pulling it up. It's like winking. So she's got her left eye winking. Her left eye winking. She's like pulling her lip towards her left eye. Is that
We try to
anything specific?
replicate it, Chantelle. Show us exactly. No, I'm just
Um,
We got in trouble for that last time.
I did. I'm gonna behave
She's kind of got
myself,
that,
right?
scarl on her face going on.
Okay, well, she is looking very cocky, and I think, yeah, that I think would pretty much tell me that there's stuff going on. And for some reason, I don't know, the soccer ball feels like it has to. Although I know soccer is not a kid's game, but this
Well,
whole,
Chantelle, I mean, this is a language that you're learning. So look at the picture,
yeah,
think of other words and what they symbolize, and where things are in position to other things.
yeah.
I think our show is just a little too I don't know if we can talk about those things, but literally she has a ball on her bum. So
Yeah,
that's the nicest way we can put it. I think that that's
yeah,
exactly what
yeah.
I mean, it really is implying quite a bit. We're both taking drinks
Well,
now. Like, wow, we
I,
figured it out. Yep. You guys are going to be
well, there you
great at reading Luciferian Brotherhood by the time we're done, eventually years from now with this show. We'll all be
exactly.
expert
Eventually,
Luciferian Brotherhood readers.
Eventually, we'll figure it all out when this one is dead and gone already, and their kids have taken over. Ivy Blue standing there on a blue cube, and we'll still be figuring it out.
Right.
Okay, well, here's just another one of with Madame Beyonce present, and it looked like there she was actually pregnant, if I'm not mistaken. But there again, Madonna as well. Madonna she actually looked quite nice there, not like the way she looks now, and of course Rihanna. So these to me are all three like it's about just them being goddesses of sorts. I mean, can we
Yeah.
decode from there what type of goddesses they are?
Well, I don't think it's, I mean, when we're looking at stuff, they'll wear certain headdresses for certain rituals. Do they use their clothing to display certain things? Absolutely. Like Rihanna, we see a very particular headdress that's known to, those who are um, considered, higher level of service within the Jesuit Catholic Church. Um, she just looking like she's wearing something that has a lot of diamonds or, um, you know, uh, lacy symbology to it. And, at the end of the day, what does all that stuff represent? That headdress that Rihanna's wearing literally looks like a fish mouth. Why do they have headdresses that look like fish mouths? It's because, one of the gods that they worship is Dagon. So is she in this declaring that she worships Dagon or is bound to him. She's even got ankle bracelets on. You know, d- Even her necklace in that is kind of interesting because it looks like, the dove for the Holy Spirit, but that same exact image is seen in the Order of the Temple Orientis, where you have that image of the dove descending, and that's connected to Golden Dawn. So is she displaying her orders, the god she worships? That's highly plausible. Madonna's dress comes very particular in the style, the crown, everything is very particular to um, France and the French monarchy. She's had, her tour that she did a while back. I'm forgetting the name of the tour right now, but I had done a decode on it because um, she was in Lourdes, France, and some other areas, and showed a whole bunch of magazine pictures where, she was at kind of mocking the Last Supper. Um, a whole
Right.
bunch of imagery, but all of that was very significant to upcoming events in the system. That really, she was sending messages about, where those events were going to be happening. We know, like, one of those, they showed fish bones and baby heads, and that goes to a very particular saint that they worship. Um, and in that, there's a ritual where the story is that saint saved a child from choking on a fishbone. So that's why they've got all the baby heads in there. But how is that used in the system? They do very grotesque rituals around that. So, here we see the prevalent, the cross, um, and we see that French look. So I think that picture, I could be wrong, but I want to say that that probably was taken around the time that she was doing that tour when she went to France, she went to Turkey, a few other places. So I think all that symbology was things that she was, sending messages for at that time. And then, you have Beyonce who's dressed like, Ashtaroth or Isis, um, in goddess clothing. And, I believe she was pregnant at that time as well, but displaying, her authority with the type of headdress she's wearing.
Hmm. Found Rihanna also, if you say as the fish, there's sort of a similar color to a fish as well, right?
I
It's
don't know.
silvery, scaly, kind of fishy look.
Right. Looking fishy.
Yeah, exactly. 7 fishes happening over there. I wonder what it could be. Okay, now we've been hearing lately that King Charles has cancer. But now let's for start. I mean, seriously, is this the same person, Jessie?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's questionable. Some of the things we said the last show, the hairline, that's where you really can see a difference. Like if he's older, his hairline wouldn't get better. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So we see that somehow he's gained more hair in areas where he didn't have hair before. Um, I think some of the wrinkle lines are pretty darn close, you know, but you look at the eyes are different. The mouth definitely is different.
The nose is definitely
Mm,
different. All it's close, but
yeah,
no cigar. But just the whole energy of that person is different,
yeah.
you know. So now, where would you imagine? What can you tell us? Where is the real Prince Charles or King Charles? Because he obviously would have been a prince when he disappeared. Why is this one taken over? Can you
That's the
give us some?
question. I mean, you have both the queen and her twin have passed away. You have the Knights of Malta who have dismantled. You have the Vatican that has no money. You have Princess Anne stepping up as the head of the, Knights of the Garter, and you just got to ask where are they all? The only ones we kind of really see, and I question too, because I've seen pictures lately like of little Miss Charlotte, and it's like, what in the world? Like that, it looks like her, but it's like you have to ask, like, how did she age so quickly? Like,
Yeah,
you
grow
know?
up so quickly.
And so I question if any of them are really who they're supposed to be, or is this a situation like HRC where, we've got doppelgangers that, were their whole lives they were trained to fill in. You had one of those for, we talked about that for Prince Harry, that the person that we grew up knowing as Harry is not the real Prince Harry, yet at the same time, like, he totally was raised as Harry. That's his identity. So do they sometimes in these positions have people who are raised, with those identities and don't know any different, you
Do
know?
you say that, I mean, speaking about Harry, because there's very interesting stuff coming up on Meghan Markle right now that I'm seeing as well. But do you think that the Harry now knows that he's the fake Harry? Because if the real Harry, and I know we've spoken about this before on the show, that he actually passed away quite a while ago from health issues. So this Harry that's in there now, but how long are we talking? I mean, are we talking since boyhood that this one's been taking this role? Or
I think since infancy. I think since
right,
infancy that they're raised to play that dual role.
right. So he actually has no idea that he's anything else other than Prince Harry. Do you think that's part of the reason he's been ousted? I mean, I know kind of like according to what the media, mainstream media has been telling us, him and Meghan made that choice to go and live in America and live the Netflix life type thing. But do you think that that could be part of the reason he's been ousted? Because really, but at the end of the day, how many royals are the genuine royals, right? I mean, the way I see it, not many of them are the genuine royals, but I just like your take on that.
Yeah.
And look at this one's hands. Look at this man's hands. Sorry, that's why this. Look at it.
I wouldn't necessarily say those are men hands. Those are edema. And Chantelle, you know what can cause edema in the hands? Pregnancy. Maybe King Charles is pregnant. I'm just throwing that out there. No, I
Maybe
think
the girl.
the story is they're claiming he's sick. They're not going to tell you all about it. Usually you'll see, like, as kidneys start to shut down in illness, you'll see people with extremities that will swell, so I think that does kind of symbolize that there is a health issue of some sort, but
See, now this one looks different again.
and
I don't
you
know.
know what? That picture, I just gotta say, that picture, it really looks like our so-called, faux president right now, doesn't it? I mean, it kind of looks like our
Exactly.
faux president. Maybe our faux president is
The sniffer,
pretending to be Prince Charles too. Maybe it's
the
the same
sniffer dog.
guy pretending to be both our president and the king. I don't know.
Exactly. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, well, I mean, I just find it very interesting that he's now got cancer. And I also read somewhere that royals, they don't die of something like cancer. It would always be covered up to be something else. So it's interesting that he's dying of cancer. Now, still on the topic of royals.
Yes, the Rosemary's Baby's dress. Just interesting,
Great.
huh?
Pray tell, Jess, what's that about?
Yeah, I think we did a great show a long time ago called Chantilly
Yes.
Lace, and we talked
Yeah.
about, what the system communicates through lace and how it usually, relates to dimensional or interdimensional access. So, is she declaring to people who may want to sponsor her child, the level that that child technically should be capable of accessing? We have to remember that these people, when they get a child or have a child, they're taught that, their whole purpose in life is to keep the system going. And so there are requirements of the parents, there it's ingrained to you from the time you're a child. Um, as you're being trained, they will say things like good mothers do this or good mothers do that. So that then when you have children, like you know, will follow through with all these things that you were taught as a kid that a mother should do. And so, how much of this is what we're seeing, is the system coming out, her training in the system.
Right.
And,
Let's talk about.
there's a
Sorry.
question Desmos has, do they usually sacrifice the first babies? At times, um, I would say generally, the answer to that would be yes. That, usually you'll see if they advertise it, um, you know, as a miscarriage or something like that. But, most of the time, those first babies are in their younger years for these girls, like around age 13. And,
Oh,
that will be the moon child that's offered, or, um, and with that, when we say sacrificed, what I'm finding is that it doesn't always mean that the child was sacrificed and killed. Sometimes they would move those firstborn children, like the mother would believe she watched that child ritually die, but then that child would be placed in another family chosen for a specific position, and that mother has no idea that that child is still alive. Um, so with some of the, specific Lebensborn children, I'm finding that that is very much the situation where they faked their deaths.
wow. It makes a lot of sense, you know. I mean, it makes a lot of sense that they would be doing that. And just here
Yeah.
again, isn't that interesting? There in Rosemary's Baby, that's similar.
Yeah, the
Um,
similar carriage and
yeah, that's being
yeah.
displayed there. So, are we saying with that that because didn't Rosemary? I've actually never seen that movie. Didn't she give birth to the Antichrist or something like that?
Yeah, that was the that was the concept behind that. We should do a
So
movie night, Chantelle, and watch that movie. I haven't seen
I
it for a
think
long time.
I think I should, yeah, because I've never. I don't know. I don't like watching these. I'm not a real movie person, to be perfectly honest. There'll be certain things I watch, but it's interesting, you know, to have that and you know what we're looking at there. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go on to someone else. Yeah. I think this picture, as always, is always coming up in conversation, and this from for those of you, this is some piece of artwork that's in. I do believe it's John Podesta's house. Am I right, Jess?
Mhm. Yeah.
Would that be so? Can you explain to us what that's about? Again, it's quite gross.
Well, it looks like a, decapitated body. I think that it, gets into much more than just art. Like, we have to remember that these individuals at the end of the day are Nazis. They're also Luciferian Brotherhood who satanically ritual do rituals and sacrifice. And, really they've made their sacrifices as a form of games, whether that's done as art shows or different things. One of the things that they'll do is called smocking, where everybody shows up to the party naked and they'll paint each other, um, with these paints that will only show up in black light. I can remember them using gold the same way that, they would paint certain people in gold at their parties. You would see that a lot at the Rothschild dinner parties, um, in their Illuminati balls, where you'd have the actors or the people who were the entertainment for the night all painted in gold. Um, so I think it's a way for them to, display their sick things that they do, and they display it as art so that it's accepted, you know?
Isn't this also what I've been reading? Isn't this the way that if someone has been severely tortured or something like that, they would arch into this type of position? So would that
Yeah,
not be?
I mean, there's different things that can be, caused that can cause that. And that definitely looks like a malnourished body. Is it
Yeah.
just art? Is it a sculpture? Or is it a trophy of some sort?
Hmm.
Is there any real, is there a possibility at times that these, things that look like statues really are?
Crazy. So awful. Well, yes, everyone's favorite friend, Jennifer Aniston. So I think if a lot of people were questioning whether her involvement in whatever's going on. So this pretty much looks like she's part of it, right?
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, there's definite things that have gone out, um, where they've discussed the Satanism things that they would do, around the shows before, after. Um, here just see where they're sending a lot of the messages, common things like, the single eye, or, her standing behind a door with or a window with the hands on the walls that represented, you know, a lot of times the ritual killings, or the ritual walls, those that would be, trapped in rooms, held hostage, or as slaves. Um, you've got the hush symbol, and then the devil horns, and with the tongue there coming out. That's very specific to a very specific demon, Beelzebub, and you'll oftentimes see that on fountains or certain architecture of the older buildings where they would have, the demon face with the tongue coming out. That was a homage to Beelzebub.
Wow. And wasn't it, weren't they also known to, as you say, I mean, weren't they known to the whole Friends team um, doing these Hail Satan things before the filming or something like that?
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. Like before and after the shows, they were doing things. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was rituals and things. I would imagine that is right. And
Yeah.
there's a big conspiracy saying that she was actually born man. So she's nicknamed
Not
Jennifer
sure on
Maniston.
that.
Yeah,
I think
difficult.
that's a hard one to, sometimes that's a hard one to prove yay or nay.
Yeah. Okay. And then, of course, here's lovely Scarlett Johansson, right?
hmm We see her there,
Um,
that image in particular, it's some opposite colors, but that particular image is similar to the one Marina Abramovic did. holding the horns like that with, blood all over. And, we have to ask, like, is Scarlet, was this, indicating that she was engaged in some sort of satanic ritual?
If you look at her face there, the thing about this picture for me is that blank look and that sort of mouth a little bit open, like as if she's
Clueless
dazed.
that she's got red nails. It's
Okay,
made, I think it's made to look like the white, make it look like she's innocent, like she's a virgin, yet, she's got these brazen red nails on.
right. Wow. And that kind of says a lot, right?
Yeah, it started out way back when the painting of the nails or the toes, especially with that crimson or scarlet color, was very significant of a certain order um, that, went by the same name, crimson. And those were, it was kind of like a fraternity that were in the universities back in the, early 18, or I'll just say 1800s, 1900s, um, that these women who would get their way in, they would be part of that elite fraternity.
Right. So would they be trafficked in there? Would they be high class call girls, basically?
No, I these were more women that would be interbred into high level elite
Right.
families.
Okay.
Um, Yep, so they would be considered, women that are going to be running the show for some of these elite men. Trophy wives would be a good way to put it.
Wow. So they really are the woman, the strength behind them, and they call the shots behind whatever's going on. Interesting. Oh dear. And this, of course,
Red, yeah, the
the
red
red
shoes again.
shoes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Let's
you
talk
do have
about
that
those red.
very prominent with the cannibalism. I've talked about that in some of my affidavits, the taxidermy that would be done with human skin and that is prominent of the ninth circle, but that's not the only council that, engages in that stuff. You have other councils too, but each of those councils kind of signifies themselves in a different way, so that you kind of know who's connected to who within the different circle groups.
So these shoes are really made from human skin, right?
Yes, they leather human skin.
And would that be maybe their first victim, or is it their victim? Because I would imagine there would be a certain who actually makes these shoes. Do you know which is there a fashion house that actually makes
There's
them?
they're gonna have special um, individuals who do that for them, who are skilled in that particularly. I've talked about, how Gloria Vanderbilt was somebody who, um, had stuff set up below her place, where she could taxidermy and create leather. Um, with that too, though, that you also will have, um, it doesn't have to necessarily be their first victim. You'll kind of have it'll go between them and the that and the diamonds, but both will be used, from a victim that I believe it's usually like when they first step into that circle or that position. So, they could have been engaged in stuff in their younger years, but then this is going to be their first victim in connection to that circle or their position.
Right.
Um, yeah.
So the shoes are the leather from the shoes are have a special connection to the person that's wearing them. It's not just
Well, yeah, I
all
mean,
in,
it's specifically
yeah.
for it's, we have to remember that within the system they have different currencies that are connected to our quantum currencies. So, what does the foot or the shoes represent? It represents that promise of authority and jurisdiction over land. That, wherever the sole of our feet treads, the Lord gives us that land. So, in a way, they will do this because they believe it will give them the access and the rights to the land wherever that person or child that they took the life of has the rights to. So, in that, they believe they gain more power, more authority, more jurisdiction based on, whoever's soul they've, taken.
Is it always a child that the skin is, or could it be an adult? Or I mean, if you look at
I
also a
believe
lot of the,
it's children, specifically infants.
jeez, it makes me mad. That just
Yep.
is so toxic. Okay, let's look at this again. These, I do believe this is also part of the Podesta art, right?
Yes. And
Yeah,
in there you have, a lot of symbology from the system. A lot of these pictures are taken from very specific places. If you, look at the walls, we see some of these pictures more towards, the second and the third row there. A lot of those are taken from pools, except for the one with the white and the red. Um, that's a wallpaper behind there. But, it indicates kind of certain places within the system, certain pools, certain areas. The one there with the boy and the girls, you know, that are kind of just sitting there in the middle. Those I believe are straight from the Vanderbilt so-called pool, which really was a boat launch they had there at Biltmore. And, I've described certain rituals that took place there and what those pictures really meant. Um, then you have, like the ones with the wallpaper. I believe those are representing very specific mansions or homes or places where they're committing crimes against children. And then, up at the top, even, you see, we've talked about, the black and the white checkered floors, and usually it means access from above, with spiritual gates or sexual magic. So in that picture, you have something signifying a gate access, and then it looks like she's got a skirt that looks like, it leads to Hawaii or, to an exotic place, and then you've got a child there. Um, so are they basically putting that child on the market, saying, hey, this child can, sex with this child will get you certain access to a certain place.
and that's very specifically a boy. You can see that. And what's
Yeah.
interesting in
Well,
all of
no,
these,
that's her thumb. That's her
oh,
thumb.
right. Is that a thumb? Okay, I thought that was his little thing.
No, that's her thumb, yeah.
What's interesting, there's two things that to me are very specific in all of this, is that the black eyes of these kids, like all of their eyes are drawn, just like you look at the ones at the bottom as well, just like black
Mm.
dots, right? And also the one that looks like Anderson Cooper, that the one in the middle, to me, Looks just like a young Anderson Cooper. I'm sorry. I've always thought that, and I know that's been pointed out a lot of time. Who's obviously, for those who don't know, and I'm sure everyone here does know, that's Gloria Vanderbilt's son.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then also, so there's two things I'd like to ask you. Is there any reason these kids' eyes are drawn so black?
I think that is done particularly by artists um, to show what they believe is, soulless. There isn't any life in the soul, or almost dead. We could put, they're kind of considered dead eyes.
But would it also not be considered, for me, it like soulless would mean, okay, they've lost their soul, or they are dead, or they can be killed, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way I see it, it looks like could be a lot of different reasons. It's so terrifying. It's just so macabre. I mean, and then
Yeah.
also, why are they all wearing red shoes?
Mm-hmm. Not all have the red shoes. You have some that are barefoot and stuff. But,
Yeah,
I think another way to word that question is, you know, is the artwork showing the faces of those that were made into red shoes?
ah,
Are
my,
they
okay, bing, 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 got it.
are they, displaying the faces of their victims?
Oh, that just is so sick. Yes, because that's the connection to me. It's like the eyes would then show that they are soulless, and obviously when somebody dies, they don't have a soul anymore. And then the red shoes would then say, okay, they've been made into red shoes, they've been sacrificed. Because especially if you're looking at this middle one with the boys, it looks like, no, there's also girls there, but the kids looks like they're on their knees, or with the red shoes on, right, with their hands behind their backs. So, and it looks to me like they're in that pool, right? That pool of
I mean,
the
here's the
Gloria.
sick part. Like, do they make it parties where, these kids that are brought in, they don't know what's going to happen to them. The majority of them, from the time they were young, have been trafficked and sexually abused. Maybe they think that this time is going to be just like all the others, and they're expecting to be sexually abused, and they're made to sit there and have their pictures drawn, and they have no idea that, what comes next is something so horrific that they don't live through,
Right,
and this is just another way, um, within the system. It's a form of imprinting. It's a
right,
way to imprint the soul to, remember the essence of that person, and to monetize off the essence of that person. And that individual never gets the right, to be who they are, and to, you know, earn for themselves. Like, they are constantly under this slave bondage. Um, so I think it's just another way that they found to um, mem memora or how would you say it? Memorialize, but bigger than that, it's another way that they capitalize. They've This is their way of documenting, especially, you know, they have to display that things were done, whether that's
right,
in video form, or, that's kept on the tapes that they keep, but in the days before they had the ability to film, how did they, you know, keep those quotas or documents? A lot of it came through pictures. And
right,
that's why you see a lot of the elite children with the lacy clothing, because they were, in that showing what that child had been used for. And in fact, they did do a lot of pictures, painting of the dead. where they would paint the dead children. So I think that that's, it's just another way that they learn through their witchcraft to, capture certain images and things that they,
Right.
glee and take delight in.
And that pool, that especially, and I'm still on that photograph here, second bottom row in the middle, with those kids on their knees, the hands behind their back. That looks very much like that Vanderbilt's pool, right? And we know
Yes,
that's where the 12-year-old rituals took place, right?
correct.
Especially with the boys. So it would seem to me that these kids, and especially when you're looking at their black eyes, right, and the red shoes, they're all wearing red shoes of sorts, or very red feet at least, which to me would symbolize that they didn't make it. And then now I have a question here as well, because they would have been obviously then killed, right, and partly cannibalized, I would imagine, by the 12-year-old boys who were then part of the elite system. So I'm wondering then, do all the boys who've done that get a pair of red shoes? Maybe not at the age of 12 or 13, but later on in life.
That's a very good question. I don't have a full answer for that, but
Right.
I
Would seem
would
to me,
say if they're considered part of the ninth circle group, then
right.
yes, they would. And in
Okay.
fact, they wouldn't just get the pair. The question is, at that age of 12, did they have to, you know, learn how to procure and process their first victim? Did they
Right.
do the shoes themselves?
Wow.
You know?
Ooh, yeah. And especially if it's Vanderbilt's house, right? Because that's where she had a, is it tannery, or
Yep.
um, what do you call it? When the other one, when they stuff the animals,
Yeah, the
taxidermy.
taxidermy and
Yeah.
tannery.
So now, if I'm looking at the row above to the right, you're seeing what is very obviously two girls with the red and white wallpaper, and it seems like they have like a cut across, like downward from the belly, and those bellies look raised to me. So it would tell me, they've got little breasts, so they are girls, and they're obviously of childbearing age. So do you think that that could be symbolic of I would imagine that they were breeders, right? If
Well,
they,
it looks like they're hung on a wall. And if I
right,
remember correctly, especially like in the 40, like I'd say maybe the 20s through the 50s and 60s, isn't that like the type of they'd have like those like kind of button up undergarments for girls, especially like when
right,
when they were menstruating, right?
right. Okay,
So I think that there's a lot being displayed there. Um, I think it is very much they're putting them on the market saying these are of breeding age.
right. Okay, well, I think that's enough of that one now. Now, hang on, this is just a whole lot of celebrities, I think, over the years. Just, yeah, what's that cross
Yeah,
that they
the
have over
wings.
there?
Well, it's different. Like you have, I think a lot of it, the crossing over, represents the thelemic magic wings that Aleister Crowley would use. So it's like a homage to Crowley and thelemic magic. But then you see some like the Muhammad Ali, um, you know, that could be skull and bones, but that also is the sign language for death. You have the one like with Stephen King where his is particular, like the sign language for love, but at the same time you see it very prominently, it looks like an X. So
Right.
is it meaning more than just love? So I think you get different ones. The one right above the Stephen King, instead of the fingers being fanned, they're very close together to kind of look like a dove.
Yeah.
Um, so that could be symbolistic of, the OTO. So there's different, I think there's different meanings to some of the different things in here that they're signifying.
So, do you honestly think that all these people posing like this know what they're doing? Is it possible the photographers can just say, "Well, put an X across your chest"?
Yeah,
And
I think sometimes you do get that direction that initially they might not know, but I think, when we really think about it, you know, the majority of these individuals have been going through training and programming since they were little.
yeah,
How much of that are they aware of versus, they might not have say in the artistic design of how it's displayed, you know, but
right.
do who they're working with know, the messages that are being sent? Who gets that information? Who designs the magazine covers for the quadrants? Who gives out the symbols or the signals? Um,
There's two I find quite disturbing. Of course, Morgan Freeman, who I think is such a cool actor, really cool. And then, of course, sitting on the top right, or second from the end, is Sinead O'Connor. I mean, who would have thought that Sinead O'Connor would have been involved in this because she was so anti. Do you think possibly? I mean, when we're just looking back at Sinead O'Connor's death, what must have been about a year ago now,
mhm.
right? And she was so outspoken. I mean, she was the one that stood on the stage during one of her concerts and ripped a picture of the Pope up, right?
Yeah.
And pretty much told the
I
world that,
totally think that's because she went through stuff, and I think she rebelled. I think,
yeah,
she attempted to separate herself from that, and she paid the price for that as well.
yeah, and that's when her son also, right? Her son would have
Mhm.
then also been taken away and all sorts of
Yep.
awful things. Yeah. Of course, and now here we have, and I think we'll make this the last one for today because I know it's been a long show. But yeah, of course, some of the celebrities who have inverted their kids. I want to just, I'm making the screen bigger. Does it make it bigger for you, just by the way, or not?
No.
Oh, okay. If you want to make it bigger, I think if you look at the bottom right of the screen, there's like little 4 blocks there that you could actually expand it if you want to see better. I don't know if you can do that from your side as well. But there, of course, we have in the left-hand corner Charlize Theron that I've spoken about many times. She adopted 2 little African boys and turned them into girls. Um, I don't actually know who all of these people are, I must be very honest. There's Megan Fox at
Mhm.
the bottom. There's what's his name? Will Smith's son. That one. Um, this is whose child is that in the pink tutu? I can't remember now. But yeah, so talk us through a little bit about that and all these kids that are being transgendered. And
Yeah, I think,
obviously,
yeah, in the system, there's two types of sacrifices. Um, and it goes back to scripture where, there would be two goats or two calves that were to be sacrificed. And those calves, one would be killed and the other would get to live. And so, it's a mockery of that. instead of individuals being demanded to, sacrifice and kill their firstborn, if they don't want to do that, then they can offer their child as a living sacrifice. But that means that then, you know, those children are going to be dedicated to Baphomet, which is, the half goat, half human, half male, half female. And, then they begin to, um, morph the child into or sexually inversion them. So,
So let's say, for example, some of these celebrities, which there's a lot of rumors, for example, oh, that was Gwen Stefani's child. Sorry, thank you, Captain of my soul. Yeah. So let's look, for example, it is rumored that Charlize Theron was born male, right? And I know, like, we look at Nicole Kidman, and I know from Fiona Barnett, who actually spent many years in the system with Nicole Kidman, and was speaking about how when she was still in her mother's womb as a male, her father, who was her also chief abuser and controller, and also Fiona Barnett's main abuser, that he actually transgendered Nicole while she was still in the womb, which is why she could not have children. So she had male parts on the inside, but yet externally she was this lovely looking woman. So would it be then, let's say these actresses, call them actresses, that were born male and literally can't have children, so end up adopting, like Charlize, for example, like
mhm.
Nicole. So then would they then, because they haven't been able to sacrifice their child when they're 13 or whatever, secretly, would they then need to transgender their first child? Is that the issue?
I think again, you got to remember it's at times, because this isn't going to happen to absolutely every child in the system, nor,
Right.
is every child going to be sacrificed. So I think that it depends very much on the individual, on their position, and on, those who are in charge or overseeing their quotas based on, their life situation.
So sad.
Yeah.
It's so, so sad. And I mean, when you look at Megan Fox's kids, she has 3 boys and they're all girls. She's turned them all into girls. And every time you see those kids, they just look dreadfully unhappy. They just look
Hmm.
so damn unhappy, right? Sad. Anyway, so yeah, guys, I think we're going to call it a day with this stuff today because it's not always pleasant to look at. I want to just find
Hmm.
where that picture is so I could take it off the screen. Um, sorry, wrong one. Cool. Okay, Jess. Well, I don't know. Is there anything you would just like to maybe end off for us with before you close in prayer? Because I know it's
Yeah,
a
I
bit of a
think I encourage people to go back and, you know, go back and watch the former episodes we've done on the decodes and the
yeah.
meanings, the signs, the symbols, because that will help you understand more of what we're seeing, what's going on. Um, so I encourage that. And then, I think the biggest question is, if that's your family situation, is there healing? Is, some of this happens, I think, for some families unbeknownst or outside of, their will, where you may have somebody who's come alongside of that child in the school. A lot of times, they're connected to peers who begin to encourage things, especially in the, preteen years. So if you're, struggling with those things and you're looking for avenues for healing, I really encourage you to seek the Lord on that and ask the Lord, what you can do. Um, I spend a lot of time on my website, Kingdom Living with Jessie, breaking down some of these different things, but from the perspective of, now that that's been the situation, how do you find healing? How do you find deliverance? So I encourage you to look for those videos on Kingdom Living with Jessie. I also have courses, Foundations of Kingdom Living, The Rise of the Righteous, and Beautifully Adorned, which Beautifully Adorned really focuses on coming to that place of healing. So I encourage you guys to look into that. So, Heavenly Father, we know that it is such a wicked world that we live in, and there are so many evil things surrounding us, so many heavy oppressions. But you are the Lord our God, who is our healer. You are the one who breaks the chains of wickedness and breaks the yoke of oppression asunder. Father, we ask that as we see these things happening in our schools and our communities, that you would put on our heart to intercede for these children. We ask that you would give breakthrough, Lord, that you would make the change and the difference that needs to be made. We ask that each child may know and understand who you made them to be, that they may understand the purpose that you created and designed them for, and that we would be those who would come alongside of them, displaying the beauty that you have given to them within our communities. Um, that we would always be willing to invest in that beauty that you've given to others. We ask for this in your powerful name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
Hey, wow. Okay, everybody.
We'll see
Thank
you
you
all
so
later.
much. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. I know some days our topic's a little heavy, like this one as well. It's never nice to
Yeah.
see what is imposed and forced upon on our children, but it's so important, in my opinion, that we
Right.
see what's going on and we know what's going on, because knowledge is power, and that's how we get to change the world, right? Is by
Yeah.
understanding what's going on. Cool, everyone. Thank you so much for watching today. Caleb tomorrow again. And I can't remember who on Friday. Oh, Rocker Mike again on Friday. He's actually the guy, the New Yorker. Cool guy. And he has a lot of the Sons of Sam stuff. You know, Bryce and I've also been looking into the whole Sons of
Yeah.
Sam, and he's got a channel called the Sons of Sam Chronicle, which has been amazing. But we're going to be talking about a whole lot of other stuff that happens there. And so, yeah, fascinating character, that one as well. I'll be on Catherine's show on Friday afternoon, and then with Rocker Mike back on Aquarius Rising on Friday evening.
All right.
Yeah, indeed. So take good care, everybody. God bless you all. Take
See you all
good care of
later.
yourselves. Have a lovely, lovely, lovely rest of your week. Cherry bites.
Bye.
Hey, where's my video? Oh, I pressed the wrong button.